Hello Rajaram, welcome. 1 second, okay? Okay, so Ram Kumar, good evening. Welcome to today's session, everyone. So we are going to start with the fourth lecture on Standard 10 NCERT History textbook, and today we are going to deal with topics like globalization, after industrialization, whatever happened in the world. Okay, so we will start with all these things. But again, this is actually the part of an ongoing history series where we have already completed NCERT history textbooks all the way from standard 6 onwards to standard 9. Okay, by tomorrow standard 10 NCERT history will also be completed. Next week we will see 11th standard textbook, and afterwards the 12th standard one. Okay, so the entire history textbooks for NCERT will be covered in this series. Alright, so let's begin. Part 4 out of 5. But before we move on, let me just tell you one more thing. At 5:30 today, there will be a quiz on Unacademy app. Okay, 5:30 we have a quiz on Unacademy app. So please be ready with your app. The topic is geography. Okay, geography is the topic. The quiz will start at 5:30 p.m. live. So I will try to complete the session by 5:30 p.m. and proceed along with the quiz. Okay. Good evening, Saubhagya. Thank you, Rajaram. Okay, so part 4 out of 5. Alright, so let's begin. But before we begin, let me just introduce to you about Unacademy. Unacademy is India's largest learning platform, which offers you a wide variety of things, starting with daily live classes, where you can chat with your educator, clear your doubts, put your queries, etc., etc. Then live tests and quizzes, just like the ones we are having at 5:30, which will help you to evaluate yourself and understand where all should you improve more. Okay, then we have structured courses. Structured courses means the entire syllabus for the examination will be covered. Rather than looking at some random videos, you can actually go in a streamlined path. Okay, so one of such series has started in Unacademy on October 19th. This is known as Mission UPSC 2021. So those who have subscribed, please look into this. Okay, then you have unlimited access to all Unacademy resources which are relevant for your examination. So in order to get all these things, first thing to do is download Unacademy learning app from Google Play or App Store. Once you do this, create an account and get a subscription. Okay, so I am Madhav Sankar R Warrier, and in order to get PDFs, class notes, etc. from my side, kindly subscribe to this Telegram channel t.me/msrw1. Okay, those who have subscribed to this channel will get all the PDFs, all the materials that I have I teach in the YouTube session as well as my Unacademy platform session. Okay, so please also follow me at unacademy.com/@msrw so that whenever I schedule a session, you may get the notification. Okay, so that you won't miss any of it. Alright. So yeah, Unacademy brings you all the top educators from all over the country whose expertise you can actually use to improve your output. Okay, so these are the basic subscription rates. So far what I have said are all included in a small package known as the Plus package. This is available to you in varying time periods, starting from 1 month all the way to 3 years. A typical 1-year subscription will cost you 49,500 rupees, but upon using my code MSRW1, you can avail 10% discount and has to pay only 44,550 rupees. Okay, so along with this, understand that for all subscriptions equal to or greater than 6 months of time, you can actually avail no cost EMI facility. You can pay it in installments if your subscription is greater than or equal to 6 months of time. Okay, this is regarding the Plus package. For the Iconic package, which is tailor-made for UPSC aspirants, there are 3 sub-packages, 1 year, 2 year and 3 year. And in this package, you will be getting everything that is in the Plus package. And along with that, you will also be getting a personal coach. Personal coach is somebody who will be there as a guide or as a mentor to you. And he will help you throughout the exam preparation time, answer your queries, give you feedback, etc., etc. Okay, so personal trainer, then daily mains answer writing practice, study planner, personalized feedback sessions, etc. etc. So this is the iconic package, which is available at 69,500 1 year. Again, upon using my code, you can avail 10% off and has to pay only 62,550. Alright, now comes the third one. This is regarding the optional subjects. So far what I have talked about is the GS category. Okay, the prelims and the mains GS. For optional subscription, there is a separate package and these are the rates for the same. Okay, so choose an optional subjects whatever you want. Understand that most of the optionals that are provided in the UPSC exam is provided by Unacademy. Even if you are unable to get a optional class in your locality, you can check with Unacademy and you can subscribe for the same. So 1 year subscription here will cost you 27,500. Upon using my code MSRW1, you can avail 10% off and has to pay only 24,750. Okay, so please do look into all these packages and pick one according to your needs. Okay, so yeah, also do take a look at my Unacademy channel where I have already taken many sessions which will be useful for your examinations. Okay, so moving on to our session now. So part 4 out of 5 NCERT Class 10 World History Series. Okay. So in this session, we are actually looking into the livelihoods, economies and societies post-industrialization. So in yesterday's session, we saw what happened during industrialization, what all developments happened, what all technologies changed during this period. Alright, so here we are going to look at how or what exactly was the pre-modern world and how did it change to what it is today. Okay, so globalization is one of the concepts that we are going to look at. I will explain it on the way while we move through the slides. Okay, so we will also be looking into the phases through which the world in which we live have emerged. Okay, I mean this world is not the same as what existed 50 years ago. It is not the same as what it was about 100 years ago. Okay, so we have changed, we have seen lots and lots of changes over the past say 5 decades or 5 centuries or maybe even more. Okay, so we will see what all are the important events that caused these changes and what exactly are these changes. Clear? One thing is for sure, as we move on, the world has become a very, very smaller place. Okay, people at various parts of the world can interact with each other and they are interlinked with each other in so many levels. Okay, through trade, then through representations, through cultural exchanges, through travel. Because of all these things, the world has become a very, very small place. So travelers, traders, priests, pilgrims, etc. traveled from vast distances for various purposes, for acquiring knowledge, for looking for opportunity for job, for spiritual fulfillment. For example, Buddhism. The Buddhist monks used to travel all across Asia spreading Buddhism. Okay, similarly, travelers like Huansang and Fahian came from China to India to learn Buddhism. Okay, so these kinds of travelers, traders, priests, etc. helps in a sort of cultural exchange. Okay, we see the development of fusion of cultures around this time. And eventually, all this will lead to the world what it is seen today. Okay, so the beginning of all this was actually the Silk Route. Okay, you already know what this Silk Route is. Silk Route is, when you speak about Silk Route, the first thing that comes to your mind is China. Correct? This is actually true. Why now? Because Chinese people actually invented how to create silk from the mulberry, the silkworms. Processing of silk was unknown to the rest of the world. It was something monopolized by China until very later. Okay, so all the silk to the Western world started or originated from China. So from China, the route it took to reach the Western world, it is known as the Silk Route. Okay, so establishment of Silk Route is also one of the important events that led to cultural linkages between East and the West. It actually linked Asia with Europe and Northern Africa. Clear? Along with this Silk Route, along with the silk, Chinese pottery also was traveling in the same route. So was the textiles, spices, etc. from Indian subcontinent. Okay, so because of the trade, we see the development of cultural exchanges at this time. Also, understand that around this period, it was actually the Asian countries who were the predominant exporters. It was not the other way around. Chachal Sirohi, chapter number 4. It is not chapter, it is section. Okay. In the 10th standard textbook, there are 5 sections and we are looking at the 4th one. Okay. So, so as I have told you, exports have been happening from Asia to Western nations, not the other way around. Right now, how is it? Right now, we import things from US, European countries, etc. But at that time, it was the other way around because the resources were available in the Asian countries. Clear? So, in exchange for these resources, the Asian countries used to get lots and lots of precious metals, especially gold and silver. Okay, so precious metals like gold and silver flow from Europe to Asia at that time. This is also the reason why India, once upon a time, was known as the sink of gold. Okay, sink of gold. Why? Because Indian imports were extremely costly. Indian exports were extremely costly in various countries, and huge amount of money was paid for its quality. Okay, so India was actually known as the sink of gold because of all these reasons. Trade and cultural exchange always went with hand in hand. Okay, so wherever people mingle for whatever purpose it is, so trade or cultural exchange or whatever it is, once people start to travel, there will be a diffusion of cultures, and this diffusion of cultures led to the emergence of fusion cultures. Fusion cultures means cultures that are emerged as a result of intermingling between different cultures. Okay, so similarly, just like the textiles or any other commodities of exchange, we also see that there has been some changes in the food habits of people. Okay, we eat spaghetti, noodles, potato, etc. Right? So these are actually a result of this cultural exchange. This is not Indian food. Potato is actually unknown to people of India 500 years ago. It came to India when Europeans came here. Similarly, spaghetti was unknown to Europeans at that time. It originated in China. Okay, so due to these travels and intermingling, food travels or food habits of people also started changing. Clear? So for example, potato, soya, groundnut, maize, tomato, chili, etc. were unknown for Asian countries before 500 years ago. Clear? So same was the condition for the Americans as well. Until Christopher Columbus discovered America, America was isolated from the rest of the world. Okay, until the day the European traveler Christopher Columbus actually reached America on his way to India, America was an unknown land, and also these American people were isolated from the rest of the world for the entire previous history. Clear? Which means what? For millions of years, America was isolated from the rest of the world. Okay. Also, these food exchanges had its impacts. What does it mean? It means if a certain commodity of food is not available, it led to huge devastations in the respective place. Clear? For example, look at this. Ireland's poorest peasants became so dependent on potatoes that when the disease destroyed the potato crop in mid-1840s, hundreds of thousands of people died out of starvation. Okay, so in Ireland, just because this one particular crop became devastated due to the plant disease that was going on, people also began to starve and they died in millions of number. Clear? So food habit has its impact on its society. Clear? So all this diffusion of cultures has two effects, a positive effect and a negative effect. Clear? We will look into each of them in detail. Now, along with this intermingling, I already told you, they are intermingling, they are going from one place to another to study religion, to spread religion, to as a traveler, tourist, etc. But there have been other kinds of travels as well. For example, to conquer or to invade other colonies, okay, to invade other countries. Such kind of travels also happened long time back, especially in the 16th and 17th centuries. Okay, for example, the Europeans in the 16th century found a sea route to Asia and America. Since this period, they were actually colonizing all these countries, all these nations. We know the case of India, right? Europeans came here in 1600 and they started colonizing, and Britain left only in 1947. Okay, so these kinds of effects also happened due to this intermingling. So just like they found India, they found America. And in America, they were especially, fond of two countries, Peru and Mexico. Okay, Peru and Mexico. I mean the Latin American country Peru and the country of Mexico. Why? Because of the very fabled place known as El Dorado. What is El Dorado? El Dorado is the fabled city of gold. If you have seen the movie The National Treasure 2 of Christian Cage, you will know this. Nicolas Cage. Okay, then you will know this. City of gold. Okay, so people used to go for adventures and go for exploration based on these kinds of fables. That was also very popular around that time. Okay, so when these adventurers or when these travelers actually went from one place to another, they eventually started invading these areas. They eventually started settling down there. They eventually started pushing out the native population and gaining dominance in that place. Clear? For example, Portuguese and the Spanish colonies of America, these people came to America and they won against the Native Americans. Why? Not just because they had superior firepower. I mean, of course, the Europeans were much more developed at this time compared to the Native Americans, who were Red Indians, Aztecs, etc., Mayans, all these people. So Europeans had superior firepower, but the predominant weapon that they used was not the firepower, it was the germs. Okay, for example, the smallpox germs. When the Europeans went from Europe to from Europe to the American continent, some of these people were actually carriers of smallpox germ. Okay, and because America was isolated from the rest of the world for millions of years, the Native Americans did not have the immunity power against diseases like smallpox. Okay, so once this smallpox was introduced in America by the Europeans, it immediately spread throughout the American continent and led to the death of millions of people. Lots and lots of people, thousands maybe. Okay, so disease was one of the prominent methods which was used as a weapon during this colonization period. Clear? So until the 19th century, although all these things happened, until the 19th century, where we see the industrialization in Europe, Europe was actually a very, poor place. Okay, Europe was also struck with poverty, hunger, etc., until 18th century. Until 19th century. Okay, so European cities were extremely crowded. Due to this crowded situation, it was extremely unhygienic, which led to the spread of diseases. Also, religion started spreading around this time, and there were innumerous religious conflicts. And those who criticized the religions were persecuted and executed. Okay, so fearing all these things, fearing unemployment, fearing diseases, fearing religion, many people left from Europe to other parts of the world. This is how actually America became colonized. Okay, in my world history series, I have taught you the American Revolution. In that, I have explained, other than the Native Americans, the current, the white race of America is actually the descendants from Britain. Okay, from Europe, not just Britain, from the European region. The European people, fearing the religious persecution, fearing diseases, etc., migrated from Europe to America. Okay, so this is how America became colonized in the first place. Clear? So once it became colonized, in the 18th century, plantations came up all across America and various other parts of the world. And these plantations were labored by the slaves which they captured from Africa. Clear? So this is how slavery emerged. In order to maintain, or in order to make maximum amount from the available plantation, they need huge labor force. Okay, so if these labor force are free people, then you have to pay them wage, you have to give them holidays, etc., limit the working hours, provide them with good accommodation, so and so. Now, but to avoid all these things, people started capturing slaves from Africa. African people were took down as slaves. So these once they are slaves, then they are bound to their master and have to do anything that master asks them to do. Otherwise, they will be severely punished, even killed. Okay, so this is how the slavery system developed in those parts of time. So until into the 18th century, China and India were among the world's richest countries. As I told you, around this time, Europe was not that much rich. It was actually poor. It was only because of India. Around this time, it was India and China or other Asian nations which were actually the sinks of gold. Only after the industrialization period, the trend reversed. Okay, so we will see how that happened. You can read these images when I upload the PDF. Okay. So in the 19th century, what happened? What happened was 3 predominant kinds of flows were there. Okay, 3 predominant kind of flows. What are these flows? 1, flow of trade. I think it is self-explanatory what this flow of trade means. Trade happening between various parts of the world. Then came the flow of labor. People started moving around in search of work. Okay, so this is the flow of labor. Then came the movement of capital for short-term and long-term investments. So whenever the economy at a particular place starts to become better, immediately the investors are happy about that place and they will put in more and more investments into that place. Correct, right? Even now, whenever a company does well, it can attract more and more investors. So the same thing happened at that time also. Whenever some areas prospered, immediately the investors were looking to invest in that place. So lots and lots of capital from various parts of the world came to that region. For example, the Indian railways. When the railways was introduced in India, the entire investment actually came from Britain. Okay, there were Indian investment into Indian railways at the beginning was extremely small. It was negligible. Okay, why? Because Indian investments actually gave them a higher percentage of returns compared to the European investments. Clear? So we see the flow of capital from one part of the world to another part. Okay, so these are the 3 flaws that actually changed the 19th century to what it is today. So we are going to see the world economy and how does it takes its current shape. Clear? So the changing pattern of food production and consumption in industrial Europe. This is how it began. In the 19th century, the world see what is called the Industrial Revolution. And once this Industrial Revolution began, Europe did not have to look back. Suddenly, cities started coming up. People started moving from rural area to urban area in search of employment. Slums began to occur in urban areas. Agriculture began to go down. Why? Because more and more people are changing their jobs from agriculture to industry. Clear? So this decrease in the agricultural fields also changed the food pattern. Around this time, after industrialization, most of the food products came from other parts of the world. Earlier, Britain had sufficient amount of agricultural land in order to create its own food. But as a part of industrialization, as a part of this change in social habits, they actually had to depend on food coming from other parts of the world. Okay, so as a result of Industrial Revolution, in the 19th century Britain, the living standards of the people became extremely low. I told you, people migrating to urban areas, living in slums, unhygienic situations, spread of diseases, etc., etc. So the living standard fell down. Also, the social conflict increased because of the same reason. Again, as the industrialization happened, new and new medicines started to be invented. So if new and new medicines started inventing, what will happen? The birth rate will increase. The death rate will decrease. So overall, the population growth also started rising. So when the population increased, the demand for food also increased. Okay, so the demand for agricultural products, especially food, started to come up. Clear? So this eventually caused the government to restrict the import of corn. Okay, so what happened was, when the demand for food increased, the prices started going up. Obviously, when the demand increases, the price increases. Right? This is a very basic economic concept. Whenever the demand increases, the price increases. Why? Because of competition. Okay, so when the prices began to go up, the government had to intervene. Okay, and they actually tried to bring this down by importing more and more corn, importing more and more food materials from other parts of the world. But what happened? When more and more food products were imported from other parts of the world, the domestic agricultural laborers actually became miserable. Why? Because the imports are cheaper. So everybody will buy the imports rather than going for the domestic goods. Okay, so the domestic agricultural people started protesting, and they forced the government to impose something known as corn laws. So what is this corn law now? Corn law actually prevents import of corn from other parts of the world. Okay, thereby saving the domestic Britain economy. So the industrialists and the urban dwellers forced the abolition of corn laws later on. Okay, why? Because once the corn law was imposed, agricultural laborers were happy because their wages, their income is going to increase now. The problem was, this was not a good news for industrialists and the city dwellers. Why? Because they will have to pay more amount now in order to get the food. The domestic food was actually costly. Okay, so they were against the corn laws. Clear? And they actually made the government abolish the same. So the British agriculture was unable to compete with the imports. So unemployment prevailed, food prices started to fall, and when food prices started to fall, consumption in Britain started to rise. Okay, so from the mid 19th century onwards, we see a faster industrial growth. Okay, because of industrialization, we see more and more factories coming up, and we see that Britain is getting industrialized at a very high rate. Okay, so due to industrialization, more and more people began to get job. Also, their incomes began to come up, which means what? The society is, and overall the economy is performing well, which means the consumption rate has gone up. Okay, whenever economy does well, that the people of that economy will increase their consumption habits. So the consumption rate will go up, especially on things like food. Okay, also textiles. Clear? So food items and cotton textiles were of very popular demand around this time. Okay, so around the world, because Britain has changed its social habits, and because most of the British farmlands were replaced by industries, Britain had to import food from other parts of the world. I told you this. So in order to do this thing, the British colonizers, they actually cleared lots and lots of forests in other countries and converted these forests into agricultural lands. Clear? They started setting up railways to connect interior of the countries with the harbors. They began to develop these harbors to, so that it can handle bigger ships. Clear? So homes and settlements started rising up around these places. This is how cities like Bombay and Calcutta came up. In yesterday's class, I told you, in early India, the trading towns were actually Surat and Musulipatnam. Okay, but it was because of Britain, these two actually subsided, and Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, etc. came to the prominence. Clear? So this is how it happens. Connection of making of railways, then harbors, then more and more settlements coming into this place. Clear? And the capital is provided by London or from the other country. Okay, so this is how the world actually started changing around this time. So by the period of 1890, a global agricultural economy has occurred. Okay, and a lot of forest has been cleared to make this happen. Okay, for example, another example here. In Western Punjab, this is a very curious case. Okay, in Western Punjab, the British Indian government built network of irrigation canals to transform semi-desert waste into fertile agricultural lands. Okay, you know the Western Punjab region, and the Sindh Punjab region is extremely dry, and there is a lack of water for agriculture. So in order to provide adequate amount of water, and in order to reduce the dependence on southwest monsoon, British actually created something known as the irrigation canals. Okay, and because of this reason, more and more people migrated to that area, and they started colonizing this region, they started cultivating this region and converting this into a farmland. So this is how the colony, or this is how that area became developed. Okay, so hence this area was named as canal colonies. Okay, people came there as a result of British building these canals. So these colonies were named as canal colonies. Same thing happened with cotton and rubber. Cotton and rubber too were actually very important and very demandful substances for Europeans. Okay, so nearly 60% of this trade composed of primary products, that is agricultural products and minerals. If you look in the post-industrial Europe, most of its demands were raw materials. Okay, so what are the raw materials? Raw materials includes agricultural products and minerals. These are the predominant raw materials. So Indian exports actually changed from finished goods to raw materials. This is where Indian economy starts draining down. Okay, in early period, Indian exports included spices, then finished cotton textiles, etc., etc. So here India is gaining more and more gold, more and more investments from the world. But now it has changed. Instead of exporting finished goods, India is now exporting raw materials and other minerals. Clear? So now the trade happens in the other way. British will exploit this and eventually make India a supplier of raw material and market for their finished goods. Okay, now we are going to see how much is the role of technology in all these things. Industrialization witnessed development of technology. Lots and lots of new machineries came up, especially in the cotton textiles. For example, the steam engine, the spinning jenny, etc., etc. But some of the predominant ones that actually connected the entire world together, that helped the communication between various parts of the world, are the railways, steamships, telegraph, etc., etc. Okay, so invention of railways, steamships and telegraph actually made the world a very small place. Earlier it used to take months from Britain to reach India. But when steamships were invented, this period was reduced to about 3 weeks. Okay, so within a couple of months, British people can come to India and go back. Okay, it was that quick. Okay, so when the colonization happened, more and more investments was put into the transport sector. This is like what I told you at the beginning. In 1853, when railways were laid down in India, it was predominantly using British investments. Indian investment in Indian railways at the beginning was extremely low. It was negligible. Clear? Why? Because Indian railway investment gained them 5% interest. At that time in Britain, the interest rate was about 2%. Okay, so investors were happy to invest in the colonies of Britain. Also, because these things were invented, because of the rise in technology, another superior invention is refrigeration. Okay, refrigerators were invented. So what happened now? Earlier, before refrigerators were invented, the meat export was very awkward. Why? Because if you actually kill the animal in one, say from America to Britain. Okay, so from America you are bringing meat to Britain. So if there is no refrigeration and if the animal is killed in America and the meat is brought to Britain, by the time it reaches Britain it will become stale. Correct? So when at those times, what did the people do now? People brought the animal to Britain alive and then killed it in Britain. That is how it was done. The problem was these animals utilized a lot of space in the ships. Also, these animals might catch diseases on their way to Britain. Some of the animals may not like these kinds of travels, long time in the sea. Okay, so there were huge challenges to this. So when refrigeration was invented, all these challenges could be replaced. Why? Because the animal could be killed in America itself and then the meat can be brought to Britain. So the meat prices started coming down. Even the poor people are now able to afford meat. Why? Because the production price has also gone down. Clear? So due to industrialization, the living conditions of the people started to increase. So when the living conditions increases, naturally the social peace will also increase. Okay, so this is how Britain became extremely powerful around this time. Okay, now we are going to see what happened in the late 19th century. So by the time of late 19th century, industrialization has flourished in Britain. Britain has become a very superpower. and it started establishing colonies across the globe, and it started finding new and new markets. But problem was that along with all these positive things, there are some negative things also. There is a darker side. So what is this darker side now? The loss of freedoms and livelihoods for the colony people. Consider Indian area, consider India, or consider America at this time. People here actually lost their freedom, their means of livelihood. The economy actually began to become drained. So painful economical, social and ecological changes happened in all these colonies. Okay, so in 1885, the big European powers met in Berlin to complete the carving of Africa between them. So just like India and just like America, Africa was also a very attractive area. Why? Because it is one of the least explored areas in the world at that time, and Britishers and other Europeans believed that Africa has a huge abode of resources. Okay, so they were curious about Africa. Even now, Africa is a very hot topic. India, China, etc. are trying to invest in Africa. Why? Because Africa is considered as a, it is the area which is going to develop at a very high pace in the near future. Okay, so here in 1885, European countries met in Berlin in Germany and decided on how to split the African colonies. Okay, so Britain and France made vast additions to their overseas territory around this time. You can see this picture of Africa. Okay, here you can see the violet colored area is actually the French territory. Okay, this is the French colony, the violet colored. Okay, similarly, Britain colony is the yellow one. This is Britain. Okay, then you have what? German colonies, the orange ones are German. So this is German. Okay, similarly, the entire African colonies or entire African countries were divided among the European powers. Okay, now this is the time we see the spread of another deadly disease among the cattle known as the cattle plague or the Rinder pest. Okay, so the Rinder pest or the cattle plague occurs in Africa because of its connection to Europeans. So in Africa in 1890s, when the Europeans landed there, this plague also started. Okay, so what happened now? This plague is extremely infectious and it will spread in a very fast rate. So within 10 years of time, it spread from Eastern Africa to Western Africa and also to the Southern African region. So the entire continent of Africa was affected by this pest, this disease known as cattle plague, and 90% of the cattle in Africa perished as a result of this plague. Okay, 90% of the cattle perished, which eventually destroyed the African livelihoods. African people were actually depending on this. Okay, depending on these cattle to live. African people at that time were not that much industrialized or anything. They were, primitive way of life. So some kind of minor agriculture. Their population was also very less. So predominantly they were cattle breeders. Also some kind of agriculture. Okay, so when Europeans came there, they changed everything. What they do? They actually changed the, increased their taxes. They changed the working hours. They changed the inheritance laws, etc., etc. So they completely transformed the society and the agricultural pattern in Africa to suit their benefits. Why? Because once they got there, they want manpower to do their bidding. When British set up factories in Africa, they wanted people to work in these factories. At that time, population in Africa was extremely low. So they couldn't find any new laborers to work in the factories. So in order to compel them to work in these factories, British started messing up with their traditional livelihood methods. Okay, so when people lose one job, they will obviously look for the next opportunity. And here the next opportunity is the European companies. Okay, so this is how colonizers went into Europe. The Europeans went into Africa. Hello Akash, good evening. Haven't seen you for a very long time. Okay, so this is also the time when we hear about a very new word, that is indentured labor. Okay, what is indentured labor? This is something very familiar to Indians around that time. According to this form of labor, people were taken to various other parts of the world and put in very miserable situations of work based on some kind of bond and promises, which were most often never kept. Okay, so hundreds and thousands of Indian and Chinese laborers went to work on plantations, in mines, in road and railway construction projects, etc., etc. Okay, these people were actually taken based on a hired contract. Okay, according to this contract, after a period of 5 years, they will be brought back to their native place. This is the contract, but this never happened. I mean, the Britishers or the Europeans never kept their end of the contract. Okay. Good evening, Seema. Welcome. We have the quiz at 5:30 p.m. Okay, we will start the quiz, live app quiz at 5:30 p.m. The topic is geography. I will share the code at that time. But at my place, the power is out right now, so I am not sure how much long the laptop will last. Okay, if in case the power runs out, I will have to postpone it. Okay. Anyway, so the Indian and Chinese laborers were taken to other parts of the world using indentured labor. And most of these Indians were actually from northern region, central region and Tamil Nadu region. Okay, so Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, central India and districts of Tamil Nadu were the areas of focus. And these people were taken to islands like Trinidad, Guyana and Suriname. These are the Caribbean islands. Similarly, Mauritius, Fiji, etc., etc. The Tamil people were taken to Sri Lanka, Malaya, etc. Okay, so these are the colonies where the estates were predominantly happening. So the extra labor force from India were actually taken to these colonies where labor force was actually in the low side. Okay, also some Indians were taken to the Assam region. Assam, I mean the Assam tea plantations are world famous and it is actually created by Britain. Okay, only the Europeans created this Assam tea estate, and Indians from all parts of the country were actually taken to Assam to provide this kind of indentured labor. Okay, so this indentured labor eventually became slavery. It is actually a form of modern day slavery. Okay, so the living conditions were extremely harsh. Their legal rights were taken down. Okay, so many people became fed up with this. They were actually offered a good job, a good wage, etc., etc. in the contract. But as I told you, the Europeans never kept their end of the bargain. Okay, so their living conditions became extremely miserable that many people started to escape into the wild and find other possible opportunities. If they were caught, they were severely punished. Okay, so some developed new forms of individual and collective self-expression, blending different cultural forms, old and new. For example, say in South Africa, when Mahatma Gandhi was there, he actually organized people in South Africa to protest against them. Okay, so similarly, we see that in many of these colonies, in many of these estates, people eventually began to form unions by themselves and began to protest for what is rightfully theirs. Okay, we have seen we have some examples here. In Trinidad, the annual Muharram procession was transformed into a serious, righteous carnival called Hosek. So the religious festival was used to show the protest of Trinidadians against Britain. Similarly, Rastafarianism is also said to reflect the social and cultural links with Indian migrants to the Caribbean. So Rastafarianism is actually a religion. Okay, have you heard about this person called Bob Marley? Okay, he's a very famous personality, Bob Marley. Bob Marley was one of the prominent persons who followed Rastafarianism. This Rastafarianism is actually a religion that emerged in the Caribbean islands when Indian laborers went there and mixed the Indian culture with the Caribbean culture. Okay, so that is Rastafarianism. Similarly, chutney music, which is extremely popular in Trinidad and Guyana, is a creative contemporary expression of post-indentured experience. Why? Again, whenever Indians go to some other place, they obviously take their culture and mix it with the native culture there. Okay, like just look at the American elections that is happening right now. The vice president candidate is actually a descendant of an Indian lineage. Correct, right? Kamala Harris has an Indian root. Similarly, very recently, a minister in New Zealand has been the appointed minister in New Zealand is actually a person from Kerala who has roots in Kerala. Okay, so Indians actually were taken to different parts of the world by Britain using this indentured labor. So some people actually came back to India once their contract was over, but some people choose to stay there only. Okay, and when they chose to stay there, they began to, mingle with the existing people, I mean the native people, and together brought in a fusion of various cultural aspects. And this led to emergence of a new variety of culture. Clear? So by 1900s, Indian nationalist leaders began to oppose the system of indentured labor. I mean, indentured labor was extremely harsh, and as I have told you, the civil rights were taken away from these people. So their condition was extremely miserable. So when Indian national movement gained some kind of traction by 1900s, the nationalist leaders opposed this indentured labor. And finally, in the year 1921, this system was abolished. Okay, the indentured labor system was abolished in the year 1921. Now we have to see how did the Indian entrepreneurs flourish abroad. Okay, so whenever these industrialists required capital, required money, who do they approach? They approach banks or they approach markets. Correct, right? But for small peasants, who would give them money? I mean, large banks won't give small peasants money, na? I mean, they do not have that kind of faith in such poor people. Okay, so these poor people or these humble peasants often approach the Indian banker for money. Just before the harvest season or just before the sowing season, they went to these money lenders or Indian bankers for some kind of advances. And these bankers were known as Shikaripuri Shroffs or the Nattukutty Chettiars, etc., etc. In different parts of India, these people have different names. Okay, so these Shikaripuri Shroffs as well as the Nattukutty Chettiars are Indian traditional bankers. Okay, so they had this sophisticated system to transfer money over large distances. Have you heard about this term Hundi? Hundi is a very famous term that was asked in this year's UPSC prelims. Okay, this is actually a letter of credit. So such systems existed even in very old times in India. Okay, even in ancient times, this kind of system existed. So Indian financial market was actually sophisticated even before the Europeans came here. Okay. Yes, Rajaram, correct. Okay, so the Indian traders and moneylenders also followed the Europeans wherever they went. Obviously, they need some kind of money and they actually used up these opportunities whenever they got one. Okay, for example, the Hyderabadi Sindhi traders, they actually ventured to European colonies. Some other such moneylenders went to Africa. Okay, so in Africa also, new investors needed some kind of money. So these bankers went there and exploited the opportunity or, filled the vacuum that was available at that area. So this is how Indian system of banking spread across the world. Okay, now let's see about Indian trade, colonialism and the global system. So if you remember yesterday's class, I talked to you about calico. What is calico? Can anybody tell me what is calico? Quickly. Okay, yeah, calico is actually cotton, Indian superior cotton textiles. Okay, this is calico. So Indian textiles were exported to Europe because the demand of Indian textiles or the calico in Europe was extremely high. Okay, so when industrialization happened, Britain started to produce or manufacture cotton by its own. So what happened? Because of Indian imports, because of the imports made by Britain from India, the local manufacturers began to lose their ground. I mean, they couldn't, even with the industrialization, even with the machines, they cannot compete with the Indian imports. So what did the European manufacturers do? They pressurized the government to limit Indian imports. Okay, they pressurized the government to put tariff against the Indian imports. Okay, so this actually reduced the Indian exports to England at this time. Clear? So Indian textiles now faced stiff competition. So once Indian imports were reduced, the local manufacturers began to grow very well. And because of this industrialization, they had machines like the steam engine, spinning jenny, weaving machine, etc., etc. Alright, so this mechanization helped them to rapidly manufacture a large quantity of goods. If you remember, in India, all these were made by handicraft. So it was handloom industry. It took a very long time to create it. But the machines were extremely good and efficient. They could produce a large number of products in a very small amount of time. So they were machines of mass production. So Britain used this technique of mass production to produce abundance of goods. And these goods were actually exported to other countries, including India. The advantage for Britain here is the production cost was extremely low. The machines only took minutes to create a cloth. Contrary to in India, it took hours. Okay, so this cheap production helped them to produce more and more goods and sell them at a very cheap rate. So when a cheap good is available in the economy, people will go buy that rather than buying the costly good. Obviously, so Indian textile industry began to witness decline around this period because of this reason. Okay, so European goods flooded the Indian markets and started to push out Indian goods from the market. So while the exports of manufacturers declined rapidly, export of raw materials included equally fast. So Europeans, as I have told you, their agricultural lands were actually turned to industrial facilities. So they did not have the raw materials. So they need to find new avenues to get raw materials and resources. So rather than importing finished cotton textiles like calico from India, they turned to Indian raw materials. Clear? So here we see the drain of Indian economy. So just like cotton, indigo and opium were also some of the predominant raw materials that was imported by Britain. Clear? So British manufacturers flooded the Indian market. Britain had the trade surplus with India, and with this surplus, they actually balanced the trade deficits. Earlier I told you India was the sink of gold, which means what? The trade is in favor of India. There is a huge trade deficit for Britain. But once British people started producing money in India, or once they started gaining profit within India, they used this profit in order to bring down the trade deficit. So now the trade has become one way. Okay, earlier Britain used to pay the Indian goods with British money. But now they began to make money within India, and using this money they started paying the Indian goods. So there is nothing good for India here. Okay, actually Indian economy is being drained to Britain. So Britain used this surplus in order to bring down the trade deficit in its favor. Clear? Now you can see this various trade routes in this map. When I upload this slide, upload the PDF in the Telegram channel, you can go through this and have a look at it. Okay. The interwar economy. So this is what has been going on for a very long time. But in 1914, the First World War happened. Okay, when Britain was going through all these things, it was making colonies all across the globe, draining resources from India, etc., etc. First World War broke out in 1914. And I hope you know about the First World War. I have taught this in the World History series that is a part of Unacademy app series that I am taking. Okay, so go watch that if you haven't already done it. Anyway, during the First World War, Britain was so much focused into the war. Okay, so whatever they produced it for the war purpose. Also, Britain's production came down. Why? Because they had to look into war. So more and more people were pulled into armies. Okay, more and more people were asked to subscribe conscript into military. Clear? So the industrial production of Britain actually came down when the First World War started. Okay, so this is the time when Indian industries started gaining ground. Alright, so in the First World War, as you know, there were two sides. One is the Allies, which had Britain, France and Russia, later joined by US. And you have the Central Powers. Central Powers included Germany, Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Turkey. Okay, so this lasted for about 4 years, all the way from 1914 to 1919. Clear? So this war is also known as the first modern industrial war. Why? Because this is the first war of that scale that is happening after industrialization of Europe. Okay, as a part of this industrialization, new machineries, new advancements has been made in the weapon technology also. So people began to develop machine guns, tanks, aircraft, chemical weapons, etc., etc. I mean, during the First World War, Germany actually used chemical weapons against France, Britain, etc. Okay, and another problem, a defect of this war was most of the people who died were actually men from working age. Okay, I mean the army recruits people who are healthy and young. They won't recruit babies or they won't recruit old people. They want healthy, masculine, energetic men. Okay, so the people who died in this war, the soldiers, were predominantly of working age. So this actually destroyed the working force or the labor force in many European countries. Also, this caused many families to become handicapped. Okay, so now there are no male person in that family, so the women had to take up this challenge of becoming a breadwinner. So the women started to step in to various kinds of jobs which were expected to be done by men. Okay, so the World War actually changes the social pattern of that time. Okay, this is one of those times when women actually came out of their houses and actually started working in the economy just like men. Clear? So the First World War also snapped this economic links. So after First World War, all the countries were in debt. All the European nations were severely affected by lots and lots of crises. Their production is very low, economy is collapsed. Okay, so they were in severe debt. And it was actually the United States of America which helped these countries at this time. America was comparatively better off because no war happened in its mainland. The war happened in Europe. Okay, American soldiers came to Europe and fought the war. No force actually went to the American mainland. So American economy was comparatively way better. Clear? So America gave lots and lots of loans to the European nations. And by doing this, it changed from being an international debtor to an international creditor. Okay, America at the end of First World War changed from being an international debtor to an international creditor. Clear? By giving or handing more and more loans to these countries. So after this war, what happened now? As I have told you, all the industries came down, all the economies collapsed. So after the war, Britain found it difficult to recapture the earlier position of dominance in Indian markets. I told you the British economy had collapsed during the war. Its production has went down. Just because its production went down doesn't mean the consumption is going down. People still need food, clothes, etc. etc. So what do? They will rely on their colonies. So this was a perfect time for the growth of Indian industries. Indian industrialists actually took advantage of the World War I. Okay, and they made lots and lots of more and more goods, and they exported this to Britain, and thereby gaining lots and lots of profit. Okay, so this time of World War I was used by the Indian industrialists in order to gain ground in India, and they did so well that even after the war, Britain was unable to recapture their position which was which existed before the war. Okay, so India and Japan, the native people started to industrialize around this period. So First World War was actually one of those times which went in favor of these colonial people, for the people in the colonies. Okay, now yeah, I have already explained these 2 points. Okay, I'm going to the next one here. The rise of mass production and consumption. Okay, so as I have told you, United States of America has spent lots and lots of amount as loan to the European nations, and because of this, America was also having a very good, prosperous economy. Why? Because America will get repayment, they will get the interest, they will get, the American goods are bought by Europeans, etc., etc. So because of all these reasons, American economy saw a very good boost. Okay, also America started something known as the mass production, and one of the pioneers of this is actually Henry Ford. You might have heard of this person, Henry Ford. Who is Henry Ford? He is the person who actually established the Ford company. Okay, he is actually the person who came up with the assembly line. It is actually not his invention, but he saw this assembly line technique in a butcher shop, and he adopted the same technique in his car manufacturing company in Detroit. Okay, so what is this assembly line? It is using the conveyor belt. Okay, I mean, just the conveyor belt will keep on moving, and people, the workers will stand in both sides of this belt and fix parts as the belt moves. Okay, this is extremely efficient model. This will increase the output per worker and will also speed up the work. Why? Because the entire system is based on the speed of this assembly line, speed of this conveyor belt. So the workers cannot, take a break or, talk each other or anything. By that time, the belt will move again and it will, destroy the whole purpose. Okay, so it could be the entire process of production could be controlled using the speed of conveyor belt. Okay, so this actually increased the output altogether. And T model Ford was the first car in the world which was done by mass production, this method. Okay, the T model Ford, this is actually the first car in the world which underwent mass production. But problem was that the workers started feeling the stress. I mean, whenever the conveyor belt moved, they had to be ready to do the next thing. And once it moves again, they had to be again doing the same thing over and over. Okay, I mean, rather than one person doing all the jobs, now one job had multiple persons. This is how it changed. I will explain it again. Consider, say, Indian handloom industry. Okay, this one person will weave the clothes together and he himself will paint it. He himself will take it to the next level, do all the things, and finally the entire product is made by one person. Okay, but in the conveyor belt or in the assembly line method of production, it is not like that. One person will do only one job. So if a person is standing there to fix the door of a car, that is all he will do. Okay, that is all he is expected to do. Some other person at some other point in the conveyor belt, that person will look into, say, windshield or the rear view mirror or whatever. Okay, so this is how the nature of labor changed around the early part of 20th century. Clear? So workers were unable to cope up with this stress. They began to quit. Okay, so once they began to quit, in order to compensate, what did Henry Ford do now? Henry Ford doubled the daily wage. He increased the wages to $5. Earlier it was $2.5. Now it is $5. So when he promised more wages, many people came back. He actually banned trade unions also. So people came back and they are actually doing this high productive work, and there is no trade union to conduct strikes and hartals and waste the money and time. So overall, the production started to increase at a very high rate. And later in an interview, actually Henry Ford said that doubling the wages of the workers was one of the most economical decisions he has ever taken. I mean, it is paradoxical now. I mean, increasing the wage, and how is it economical? It is actually economical because this idea worked in his favor. People came back. Some of the workers came back. So he had the workers and he abolished labor unions. So nobody to restrict or nobody to hinder the working of this factory. So all in all, it went in his favor. Clear? So mass production lowered the cost and prices. Okay, so thanks to this high wages which was given by these manufacturers, more workers could now afford to purchase durable consumer goods. So once the wages were raised, more and more people started getting more and more money. So overall, the consumption or the power of purchasing actually increased in the economy. So people began to use a part of their income, the so-called the discretionary income, to buy durable goods. So if you are a very poor person, you will probably save your money and use it for subsistence purpose, for buying food, for buying clothes, etc., etc. But if you have extra money, you will buy some luxury goods. For example, air conditioner, car, computer, etc., etc. Correct, right? So overall, the American economy started becoming better and better because of this high wages which happened around this time. So the economy started booming. People began to invest in more luxury items such as house construction, home ownership, etc., etc. And once the economy started flourishing, the bankers were having more confidence in the economy, and they began to lend high amounts of loan to those who asked for it. Okay, so by 1923, US resumed exporting capital to the rest of the world and became the largest overseas lender. Okay, although the First World War affected US also in some minor proportions, by 1923, American economy was so good that it actually started exporting lots and lots of capital goods to the rest of the world. But nothing will stand forever. Okay, within 6 years of time, in 1929, the entire world sank into something known as the Great Depression. Okay, in 1929, the Great Depression happened. So, there are many theories of how this happened. None of them is extremely concrete, but it began when Wall Street crashed. The Wall Street crash of USA in the year 1929 started the global economic depression or the Great Depression. Okay, when this depression set in, the production began to become extremely low. The unemployment rate began to rise very fast. Okay, income and trade began to go low again, and compared to all other sections of the society, it was the agricultural people who was the worst affected. It is always the peasants who are the worst affected. Why? Because the industrialist people who have some kind of money, also who have acquired some kind of capital on their own, have a good amount of savings to go through these kind of situations. But agricultural laborers earn money on a daily basis. Okay, I mean, they make money for that day. They do not have adequate surplus to save. So poor people actually went through the misery at this time. So many countries financed their investments using the US loans at this time to gain, until this time. After the World War I, I told you, US started giving loans to all these countries. And until this time, the US loans were actually, stabilizing other economies across the world. But when the Great Depression set in, US stopped providing these loans. Okay, US stopped providing these loans, and when these loans were stopped immediately, other countries across the world, especially the European countries, began to crash. Their economies began to crash immediately. Also, as unemployment soared, people trudged long distances looking for work they couldn't find. Okay, ultimately, US banking system itself collapsed. US was unable to put a stop to the economic downturn, and eventually the US banking system collapsed. About 4,000, 5,000 banks in US actually shut down around this period. Clear? So until 1935, we do not see another recovery. For a period of 6 years, roughly 6 years, the world saw extreme misery due to this economic depression. Okay? Now let's see how was India prospering around this time. How did the Great Depression that started in United States of America actually affect India? Okay, obviously, whenever an international event happens at one part of the world, it will have repercussions everywhere else. So India also took a hit from this global economic crisis. Indian exports and imports nearly halved between 1928 and 1934. Okay, it nearly halved. Whereas prices fell by 50% in this region, in this time. Peasants and farmers suffered more than urban dwellers. I already told you why this is. Okay, but even during this time, British colonizers were not ready to reduce the revenue. Okay, so they continued imposing high revenues on Indian people, and this is the time when actually Mahatma Gandhi organized these people together against the British using civil disobedience movement. If you remember, CDM happened in 1931 while the world was going through this great economic depression. Okay, so this was an ideal platform which was utilized by Mahatma Gandhi to bring in the masses against Britain. Okay, also Britain used the Indian gold in order to gain back its economy. So the very famous economist John Maynard Keynes, you might have heard of this person known as Keynes, his Keynesian theory, etc., etc. So Keynes actually thought that Indian gold exports promoted global economic recovery around this time. I told you India was a sink of gold before colonizers came here. Okay, so India had that wealth with it. So this gold was actually used by Britain during the Great Depression in order to pull things together, put things back together. Clear? But again, because of the falling prices, those with the fixed income found themselves better off because everything cost less. What does this mean? This means that those people who were daily wage earners, they had suffered the brunt of this global economic depression. Those people who had fixed incomes, those who work for the government, these people have some kind of income security, right? So these people had fixed income. So when the prices started falling down, they actually were able to save more and more money. Why? Because their salary is not going down. For a daily wage earner, their wage will go down. But for a fixed salary earner, the salary will not go down. Okay, so they actually started earning more, while the poor people actually started suffering more. So this is also the time when we see the gap between the poor people and the rich people widen. Okay, rich people began to get richer, poor people began to get poorer. Clear? Now, let's see how the world was rebuilt. So the world has took a hit. Now we have to rebuild this. So how do we rebuild this world? Okay, so Second World War happened around this time. I mean, once after the economic depression, once everything came back together in 1935, immediately in 4 years, Second World War happened because of Hitler's invasion on Poland. So again, the world was split into two military alliances. One is known as the Axis powers, which was led by Nazi Germany, Japan, and the Mussolini's Italy, while the Allies was led by Britain, France, and Soviet Union, along with US, who joined the war later. Okay, so again, there were two power blocks in the world, and the world was into the Second World War. And this Second World War was actually one of the most destructive wars in history. Around 60 million people, around 3% of the world population was dead in this war. Okay, many deaths actually took place in civilian areas. So more number of civilians died compared to military people. Because, atomic bombs were put in Japan, two bombs, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Similarly, other missiles were invented at this time. Okay, so when all these mass destruction weapons were used during the Second World War, more than military people, civilian people started dying out. Clear? So vast parts of Europe and Asia were devastated. Economic devastation and social disruption happened all across. Okay, and reconstruction was actually a very long road ahead. But at the end of Second World War, the Allied powers won the war, but Britain and France were economically very down, but US and Soviet Union began to become more and more powerful because of their methods of handling the war. Again, in the Second World War also, no country was able to put a bomb or take the attack into the American mainland. Okay, although Japan attacked the Pearl Harbor, which invited America into the Second World War, other than that, there is no attack by any other power in American mainland. So American economy was still very powerful. So two of the most important results of Second World War is America becoming the dominant power, economic power in the world, and Soviet Union becoming the other power bloc. Clear? So after the Second World War, the world becomes a bipolar world. Okay, emergence of a bipolar world is actually the result of post Second World War era. Clear? Now we are going to see how did the economy survive this devastation caused by Second World War. Okay, obviously after the Second World War, everything were berserk. Okay, I mean, people desperately wanted high stable incomes. They wanted mass production. They wanted stable employment. They wanted the government to step in and minimize the fluctuation in price. Okay, so the goal of full employment could only be achieved if the governments had the power to control the flows of goods, capital, and labor. These are the takeaways from the economic times of this World War, Second World War. Number one, the goal of full employment could only be achieved if governments had the power to control the flow of goods, capital, labor, etc. Which means government has to interfere with economy. That is lesson number 1. 2. Main aim of the post-war international economic system was to preserve economic stability and full employment in the industrial world. Okay, this was the second takeaway. This was what one of the objectives that came as a result of post the economy after Second World War. Then, in order to perform all these things, in order to achieve all these things, United Nations Monetary and Finance Conference was held in 1944 in a place called Bretton Woods. Okay, Bretton Woods is in New Hampshire, United States of America, and based on this conference, two agencies were set up. One is known as International Monetary Fund or IMF. Other one is known as International Bank for Reconstruction and Development or the IBRD, which is very popularly known as the World Bank. Okay, so IMF and World Bank was born as a result of this conference, which was held in Bretton Woods. Because of that, they are also known as the Bretton Woods twins. Okay, Bretton Woods twins, IMF and World Bank. Okay, so these two institutions started their operations in 1947. Problem was, the decision makers of these institutions were Western powers. Okay, America has actually, America had the most power in these agencies, and it even had a veto as far as IMF and World Bank decisions are concerned. Clear? So these Western powers again dominated the world economic institutions. So you have to understand this scenario. After establishing these institutions, actually the world saw considerable rise in economy. An era of unprecedented growth of trade and income happened in Western industrial nations and Japan after the end of Second World War, after establishing these two institutions. Okay, remember, Japan witnessed one of the worst effects after the Second World War when atom bombs were put. But right now, Japanese economy is one of the strongest in the world. Okay, so Japan started from zero and reached where it is today because of this unprecedented growth in trade and income around the post Second World War era. The entire world actually grew at a rate over 8% between 1950 and 1970. Incomes rose nearly 5%. Okay, and mostly the growth was stable. Unemployment rate decreased. Okay, it was less than 5% in most of the industrial nations. Also, technology and enterprises spread across the world at this time. Again, as a result of Second World War, many of the former colonies has managed to become independent. Okay, most of the colonies in Asia and Africa emerged free, independent nations. Problem was that IMF and World Bank couldn't help these people much. These newly independent countries actually required lots and lots of capital to work. They need huge finance to work. But they couldn't afford it. Why? Because they were concerned with the development of the Western nations. Clear? So initially these countries were, these newly emerging countries were in trouble. They were not getting adequate financial resources from these international institutions. But as soon as Britain, France, etc., most of the Western countries became prosperous, and this took a very short time only. Okay, by this time, once these Western countries were back in their legs, the IMF and World Bank changed their attitude and they started looking into the problems of colonies. This is the time when they actually started caring about the third world, the so-called third world countries, and started, investing on projects, development projects in these countries. Clear? So developing new independent countries came under the guidance of international agencies dominated by former colonial power. This is a disadvantage here. So although IMF and IBRD helped these countries, the problem is the decision makers of these bodies are Western countries. And these Western countries are the countries which actually colonized India in the first place. Correct, na? So not just India, any other any other country which has been colonized. So those people who colonized and drained us eventually started to dictate financial terms using these international bodies. Okay, hello Vidya, good evening. Welcome to the class. At 5:30 we will start the quiz. Okay. At 5:30 sharp, we will start the Unacademy app quiz. So about 10 minutes to go. By that time, I hope to finish this session. Okay. So now, as I have told you, most of the Western nations very quickly came back to their feet, their economy started to flourish. But because of the lack of support from these world agencies, the colonial countries or the third world countries were not able to gain that kind of development around this time. So in order to put their grievances in the international forum, they together came up with another institution known as Group of 77 or G77. Okay, G77 is actually organized by the former colonies of Western nations, the so-called third world countries, in order to put their miseries into their grievances in the international forum. Okay, and they demanded something known as the New International Economic Order or NIEO. Okay, so the New International Economic Order was actually demanded by G77 because the international agencies set up by the Westerners were actually not helping these nations to develop in such a pace that the Western countries developed. Okay, so because of all these things, eventually, various kinds of conflicts started happening across the world. This is also the time when we see the USSR started to collapse, disintegration of USSR into various countries, etc., etc. Also, because of various other things that has happened, in United States of America, the finances began to go down. Okay, one of the prominent reasons is US actually waging wars in other countries. Because America interfered with say various things in other nations, American finances started going down. The exchange rate of US dollar actually went down. Okay, earlier it was pegged with gold, and at that time it was maintained at $35 for 1 ounce of gold. That is how the exchange rate was kept. But now the system was not working because American finances are seeing some kind of collapse. Okay, so what happened now? In order to prevent a worldwide collapse, the fixed exchange rate system was replaced by floating exchange rate system. Instead of having a fixed exchange rate, now we have a floating exchange rate. That is why in the newspaper we see that the rupee, the value of the rupee has gone up, came down, etc., etc. Every day we see this. Rather than having a very fixed value, every day the rate changes. So this is known as the floating exchange rate. Okay. US was waging various wars like the Vietnam War, Korean War, etc., etc. So all these international engagements actually depleted the resource of US and collapsed the finance of US. Clear? So the early developing countries could turn to international institutions for loans and development assistance. But now they were forced to borrow from Western commercial banks and private institutions. Okay? These third world nations who were earlier supported by the Bretton Woods twins were now asked to or now forced to approach Western commercial banks. So this is how something known as the debt crisis occurs. When you borrow from a private Western bank, you obviously have to repay that. It is not like borrowing from World Bank or anything. When you borrow from a private bank from United States of America, you are expected to pay a certain kind of interest and has to pay this back. If you don't do this, you become a debtor. Okay, so many third world countries were unable to pay back these loans that they took from the private lenders in the US and other Western nations, and they became debtors to these nations. Okay, so this is known as the world debt crisis. Clear? So industrial world also was hit by the high rates of unemployment. Okay, once the US economy or the US finance started going down, the US enterprises or the US industrial economy also started to suffer. Why? Because the MNCs, the multinational corporations, started shifting their base from US to other parts of the world where cheap labor is available. For example, India. Even now, America outsources a lot of work to India, to Bangalore. That is why Bangalore is known as the Silicon Valley of India. Why? Because whatever happens in Silicon Valley is actually done by cheap labor in Bangalore. Okay, so MNCs decided to shift to the low-wage Asian countries when the United States economy collapsed and unemployment started to come up. Okay, so new economic policies in China and the collapse of Soviet Union and the Soviet style of communism in 1991 brought back many countries to the world economy. So this was happening in US, Simultaneously, I told you USSR is also one of the prominent countries at that time. But due to the economic decisions taken by Mikhail Gorbachev, known as the Perestroika and Glasnost, okay, which means openness and restructuring, okay, based on his economical policies, eventually the Soviet Union collapsed in 1990s. Okay, once Soviet Union collapsed, most of the Eastern European nations, which were actually under Soviet Union, became independent. They actually changed their economic setup. They became democratic. They started taking on capitalistic methods of economy, etc., etc. So many new countries came to the World Economic Forum. Okay, in China, wages were relatively low. Okay, in China, among all these nations, China was also one of the prominent allies of USSR or the Soviet Union. But the typical case in China is, in China, the wage is very low. So if you hire an employee, you do not have to pay him a huge amount. Okay, in US, the wage is high. So if you are hiring someone, you have to pay a high amount. But in China, wage is low. So China became an immediate attractive place for investors. Okay, this is how China became such a manufacturing hub, because they have that labor force which does the job for a very low wage. Okay, so China used this cheap labor available with it in order to become industrialized. And now, right now, China is one of the most prominent powers in the world because of the same reason. Okay, because more and more industrial people were attracted by China because they do not have to pay a higher wage for the employees. Clear? So around this time in the world, we see the emergence of countries like China. So India also has the same potential right now. It is predicted that by the year 2040, India will have the highest labor force in the world. I mean the highest number of people in the labor force bracket, age bracket in the world by 2040, and it will replace China as one of the potential global manufacturing hubs because of the availability of labor force. Okay, so when you study this portion, you have to link it with India. Look at it with India's perspective. Whatever happened in the world, say World War I, World War II, or Great Depression, the other crises, etc., etc., study with Indian perspective. Okay, so that is it. Okay, Navya, I'm sorry, I just saw your comment. Okay, I was just going through the session because this was the last slide of the session. I did not see your comment until now. Sorry for that. Telegram link is written here itself. Okay, in the top of this video, it is written t.me/msrw1. t.me/msrw1. Okay. Okay, Navya, that is it. Then MSRW1, yeah, correct. Yeah, Vidya, yeah, actually, this is every Monday to Friday, working days we have this. Okay, next week there will be the classes. I mean, not next week. The week after that, there will be some differences in the schedule, but otherwise. On all other times, the class is at 4 p.m. every day from Monday to Friday. Okay, I have started this class about 4 or 5 weeks back. Okay, I have already covered class 6 NCERT all the way to class 9 NCERT. So by tomorrow's session, class 10 NCERT history will also be completed. Next week we will see class 11, and in the coming weeks we will see class 12 also. So the entire NCERT history textbooks will be covered by me in this series. Parallelly to this series, at 8 p.m. in Unacademy app, I am actually taking World History series. There I have already completed 14 lectures, and today we are going to see the post Cold War era. Yesterday I completed Cold War there, so today we are going to see post Cold War era in the Unacademy channel. So you can, these are my 2 classes that is happening every day except Saturday and Sunday. Okay. Unacademy. Yeah, my Unacademy profile title is also given here. Okay, unacademy.com/@msrw. That is my code. unacademy.com/@MSRW. Telegram channel is here, t.me/MSRW1. I am not a plus educator. I mean, yeah, I'm not a permanent educator yet. I have just started with Unacademy about 2 months back. So still going on. Okay. But you can follow me in this link. Whenever I schedule a class, if you have followed me in this link, you will get notified regarding that class. Also, you can go back and watch my recorded classes. So far, all the classes that I have taken is available in the YouTube channel and the Unacademy channel, and both are free. Okay, you can go back and watch it for free. Also, if anybody would like to get an Unacademy subscription, kindly use my code MSRW1 in order to get 10% discount. Okay, this is my code. Educator code is MSRW1. Okay, so that is it. Today's session has been completed. Now let's start the quiz. As I have told you, we have this quiz every day. Not every day, but on most days I set up a quiz in the Unacademy app. So I request all of you to download the Unacademy app and join the quiz. I will share the code right now. Okay, the topic for today is geography. Let me just start the quiz. 1 second. The topic is geography. Okay. I'm just starting it. Please give me 30 seconds. Let me just put this up so that you can see the questions. Yeah, I will provide the code. Just a minute. Okay, I'm just setting it up. 1 second. Yeah, the code is, oh sorry, 1 minute. The quiz code for today is 568868. Okay, 568868. I will start this quiz within 3 minutes. Okay, I will start this within 3 minutes. Good evening, Swati. The code is 568868. Okay, you are right on time. Let me just put my code in my Telegram channel also, so that other people also can join straight from there. Topic is geography and the quiz code is 568868. The quiz will start very soon. In 3 minutes at 5:35 it will start. Okay, let me just set this up by that time. Yeah, you have joined. I can see it. Okay, let me just set this up by that time. Okay, 1 second. This will start at 5:35. Yeah, 4 people has joined so far. We will start at 5:35. Please wait 1 more minute and I will hit the start button. Anybody who comes in between can also join. Okay, it's fine. So in order to join this quiz, all you have to do is download Unacademy Learning app and go to the test tab as shown by this red arrow here and hit the join quiz button, which is shown here, and enter the quiz code 568868. I will start in 1 minute. So those who wants to join, kindly join as soon as possible. Hello Srisandal Devi, welcome. Yes, Navya, you have to join through the Unacademy app. Otherwise, in the YouTube screen, it won't be visible to you. Also, only those people who participate via the app will get the detailed answer key in written form. In the app itself, at the end of the quiz, you will get the detailed answer key, explanation. Okay. So kindly join via the app. I will wait for you, don't worry. You can join in between also. Even if I start the quiz, it's still possible for you to join. So no issue there. There are 50 questions. Take your time. So once this is how it works. Okay, once I start the quiz, there is no stopping. It will go on until 50 questions. Every question will have 40 seconds for you to answer, and you can just, out of the 4 options, just hit the answer and go on. At the end of the quiz, you will be provided with the detailed answer key. Clear? And at the end of the quiz, I will announce the day's winner based on the leaderboard also. Okay? So here we go. It's 5:35. Let me start it. Started. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and start. Question number 1. Which of the following methods are used to reduce soil erosion while practicing agriculture in hilly areas? 1. Contour plowing. 2. Bench terracing. 3. Shelter beds. 4. Artificial headland. Select the correct answer using the codes given below. This is regarding soil erosion. Okay, how to reduce soil erosion in hilly areas. You can answer in the app only, okay? I won't explain the answer here. I will just tell you the answer and move on. That's all. Explanation is provided in the app only. The participants will get the answer. Yeah, first question, time is done. And 50% of you getting it. Let me see. All right. Very good. Vishnu has come to the top very quickly. Vidya, second place. Second question. Consider the following statements with reference to religious demography of India. 1. One of the fiercest criticisms against the census methodology is that it does not have provision to count those people belonging to none of the known religions in the world. 2. There are 6 national minority religions in India and Parsi is one of them. 3. A particular religion can be declared as a minority religion at the level of the state by the particular state government. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? Okay, yeah, option C is the correct answer. Very good. Vishnu has increased their lead. Seasonal Devi at second place and Vidya at third place. Moving on, question 3. Arrange the following tributaries of the river Ganga from west to east. Okay, this is very important. You have to study about the tributaries of various rivers and you have to arrange them from this one from west to east. Okay, so Kosi, Ramganga, Son, Gomti. Okay, I do not have any idea regarding the Hindi talks that has been going on. I do not follow Hindi. Okay, so sorry. Yeah, D is the correct answer. Nobody getting it. Moving to our next question. Question number 4. Consider the following statements with respect to the Tsunami Ready program. 1. It is a community performance based program initiated by UNESCO. 2. India is the first country to implement Tsunami Ready in the Indian Ocean region. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? Okay, regarding the Tsunami Ready program. So this geography includes physical geography, Indian geography and human geography. Okay. Okay, Navya, in order to join, have you downloaded the Unacademy app? Once you download it and once you create an account in that, all you have to do is click this test button that is underneath the page. Okay, can you see this arrow? Yeah, you just follow this arrow. Okay, this red arrow shows the test button. Click that and then click the join quiz button. And then enter the code. Okay, you don't worry. If you have any queries, you can ask me. I will help you through it. Okay, no worries. Okay, now you have to match the mountain pass with the state. Khardungla, Ladakh. Bararlachala, Arunachal Pradesh. Shipkila, Himachal Pradesh. Jalepla, Uttarakhand. Which of the following pairs is correctly matched? Option C is the correct answer. 50% getting it. Very good. Vishnu, Vidya, Swati. Oh, okay, everybody is in positive points now. That's nice to see. Question number 6. Which of the following pairs is or are correctly matched? 1. This is also between mountain pass and location. Okay. First one, Changla, Ladakh. Second one, Kura Tangla, Indochina border across Karakoram range. 3. Shipkila, Jammu Kashmir. So in geography, when you study in your NCERT textbook, in the chapter which deals with all the landforms of India, there is a picture that deals with all the passes, mountain ranges, etc. So study with a diagram. That will help you to remember all these things. Okay. Correct answer is option A. Most of them got it. Okay, Navya hasn't joined yet. If you need more help, just let me know. I will help you with that. Question number 7. Arrange the following Indian cities from north to south. Very easy question. Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad. Arrange these cities from north to south. Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad. Last 5 seconds. Time is up. 20% of you getting it. Do you need some help with that, Navya? You haven't joined it yet. Question 8. Which of the following rivers is example of inland drainage of rivers which do not drain into the sea but gets lost in the middle of their path? Okay. Home, library and updates. Okay, Navya, do one thing. Just right swipe. Okay, I mean at the top of that. Let me just bring up a figure. Okay, I will help you with it. Don't worry. You have to click the plus button. Okay, can you see this image that I have just put in? In this figure, see, once you right swipe, you will get these kinds of options. And click the plus button here. Okay, click this plus button and then other options down here will be visible for you. Okay, click the plus button. Okay, now question number 9. Which of the following statements is or are correct regarding mountain vegetation? 1. In mountainous areas, the increase in temperature with increasing altitude leads to corresponding change in natural vegetation. 2. At higher elevations, temperate grasslands are common in mountain regions. Select the correct answer using the codes given below. Okay, let me just expand this so that you can get a better view. Okay. You have to click this plus button right here. Okay. Question number 10. Which of the following statements is or are correct regarding Kingdom of Ahoms in medieval India? 1. The Ahoms migrated to the Brahmaputra Valley from present-day Myanmar in the 13th century. 2. The Ahoms built a large state and for this they used firearms as early as 1530s. Select the correct answer. Those who are watching via YouTube, kindly join this quiz via the Unacademy learning app. Please download the Unacademy learning app, and once you do this, click the test tab here and click the join quiz button and enter this code 568868. I hope you could see the answer, the other options now, Navya. Question number 11. In India, the steel production industry requires the import of dash. A. Saltpeter, B. Rock phosphate, C. Coking coal, D. All the above. Okay, for those people who cannot find the test button underneath your app, all you have to do is do a right swipe. Okay, you can see this figure now. Do a right swipe and click the plus tab as shown here. And other options will become visible for you immediately. Option C is the correct answer. 67% getting it. Okay, another person has joined. Charmi. Question 12. Consider the following statements. 1. Deepest trenches in oceans are characterized by uniformly high temperatures and persistent darkness. 2. Most organisms in the deep sea zones are carnivorous, living on the organic debris of dead organisms of the upper zone. Select the correct statements. Okay, this is regarding your oceans and vegetation. Simple question, I think. 3 seconds to go. And the right answer is option C. 40% of you getting it. Very good. Moving on. Question number 13. Which of the following statements is or are correct regarding red soil? 1. Red soil in India can be found in southern, northeastern and Meghalaya plateau. 2. The soil develops a reddish color due to the presence of heavy metals like diffused iron. 3. They are rich in humus but poor in nitrogen and phosphorus. Select the correct answer. Okay, this is a question from your soils region. You have to study different types of soils and where all it is found in India. What are the characteristics of these soils? What are the prominent crops that are grown in these soils? Moving on. Correct answer option B, 60% getting it. Very good. Vishnu, Vidya, Srisindri Devi at the top. Swati, Naveen, Charmi following down. Question 14. With reference to Airport Authority of India, consider the following statements. 1. Airport Authority of India is responsible for the development and maintenance of international and domestic airports in India. 2. It is responsible for the enforcement of civil air regulations and air safety standards. 3. It determines the tariff for the air transport services in India. Choose the correct answer. Time is up. And the correct answer is option A. 50% of you getting it. Okay. Vishnu is almost close to 1000 mark there. Brilliant. Question number 15. Consider the following statements about rivers and deltas that they form. Okay. 1. The Nile River forms an arcuate delta as it empties into the Red Sea. 2. Arcuate delta is formed when river water is denser than seawater. 3. Mississippi Delta in the USA is an example of bird food delta. Select the correct answer. So let us see how many of you have actually read Goching Leon textbook, GC Leon Geography textbook. If you have read it, you can find the answer to this one. Or Majid Hussein's textbook, whatever. Okay. Option B is the correct answer. Yeah, Vishnu has passed the 1000 mark there. Moving on to 16th question. Consider the following statements. 1. The midday sun is exactly overhead at least once a year on the latitudes between the Arctic Circle and the Antarctic Circle. 2. The angle of the sun's rays goes on decreasing towards the poles. Select the correct answer. Be very careful here. Read the question very well before answering. Many people jump to answering and make a mess out of this. This is an easy question. You can solve this by logic. You do not need to read any textbooks to solve this question. Correct answer is option B. 60% getting it. Very good. Yeah. Question 17. Consider the following statements. Number 1. While Chile in South America is most prone to earthquakes, little or no earthquakes occur in Brazil. 2. Brazil is located on the edge of a tectonic plate while Chile is located in the middle of the same. Get me the correct answer. I want every one of you to get the correct answer to this question, okay? This is a very simple logic question. Just read the statements and you will get to eliminate the correct incorrect statement there. Okay, just read it very carefully and you will know the answer. Those who are participating via YouTube, kindly join this quiz via the Unacademy learning app. Download the app, then hit the test tab underneath here. Click the join quiz button and enter this code 568868. And you can also participate. This is absolutely free. All of you can participate. Question number 18. The seasonal reversal of the winds is the typical characteristics of dash. A. Equatorial climate. B. Mediterranean climate. C. Monsoon climate. D. All the above. Seasonal reversal of winds is a typical characteristic of which among the following? Another easy question. In the last question, nobody got the correct answer. I thought everybody will get the correct answer. It was an easy question. Option A is the correct answer because why? Brazil is located in the center of the continent. Chile is in the plate margin. If a country is located in the plate margin, it will have huge earthquakes. If it is not located in a plate margin, it is comparatively safer. That is the logic. Okay, anyway, moving to question number 19. With reference to the deciduous forest in India, consider the following statements. 1. These forests constitute the single largest category of forest in India. 2. These forests grow in the region having optimum rainfall around the year. 3. Mahogany, ebony and rosewood are the important tree species found in this forest. Select the correct answer. Okay, this is regarding your various kinds of forests in India. This one is from deciduous forests. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. 20% of you getting it. Very good. Moving to question number 20. Under the National Waterways Act of 2016, 111 inland waterways has been declared as national waterways. Which of the following is National Waterway 2? Okay, you have to understand which is National Waterway 2. Okay. Option A, Kollam-Kottapuram stretch of the Western Coast Canal. B, Allahabad-Haldia stretch. C, Sadia-Dubri stretch. And D, Kakinada-Puducherry stretch. Select the correct answer. National Waterway 2 is dash. Yeah, time is up. Option C is the correct answer. Dubri, okay. Moving on. Question 21. With reference to the biomes, consider the following statements. 1. The taiga region lies between tundra to the south and polar regions to the north. 2. Tundra ecosystem is dominated by needle-like trees with spruce, pine and fir. 3. Leaves of temperate deciduous forest change color in autumn, fall off in the winter and grow back in the spring. Select the correct answer. Easy question. Look at the options and using the options you can eliminate various sentences. Options make the question easy or difficult, okay? I think Naveen has left the quiz. Question 22. Which of the following oceanic currents is or are warm currents? Okay, number 1, Canary Current. Number 2, Gulf Stream. Number 3, Falkland Current. Choose the correct answer. Okay, there is a picture of different ocean currents in your GC Leong textbook. Just look at that picture and you will know the answer. If you have studied that picture, you will know the answer to this one. Otherwise, just think, from where does this originate? If a current originates from a polar region, it is a cold current. If it originates from the equatorial region, it is a warm current. Okay, so based on these kind of techniques, you can easily identify the answer. Canary Current, Gulf Stream and Falkland Current. Correct answer is option C. Very good. 75% of you got that correct. Absolutely great. Those who wish to join this quiz, kindly download Unacademy Learning app. Under that, in the test tab, hit the join quiz button and enter this code 568868. You can also participate. This is absolutely free, so please do join. Question 23. Consider the following statements regarding various intrusive landforms. 1. A laccolith is a lens-shaped mass of igneous rocks occupying the crust of an anticline or the bottom of a syncline and being fed from beneath. 2. A lapolith is a variety of igneous intrusion with a saucer shape. 3. A phacolith is a large blister or igneous mound with a dome-shaped upper surface and level base fed by a pipe-like conduit. Select the correct answer. Nobody getting it? It is option B. Question number 24. Which of the following is or are the advantage or advantages of adopting system of rice intensification in agriculture? 1. It increases the productivity of rice by 30 to 35% in conventional varieties. 2. Crops grown using SRI method have greater resilience towards drought and storms. 3. It reduces the need for the seed and chemical fertilizers in crop production. Choose the correct answer. The questions may not be that visible in YouTube, so I request all of you to join the quiz via the Unacademy Learning app. Download the app, under the test tab hit the join quiz button and enter the following code 568868. Answer to previous question was option D. Okay. Question 25. We are halfway there now. Consider the following statements regarding Indus Water Treaty. 1. It is a water distribution treaty between India and Pakistan brokered by the World Bank. 2. The treaty has no provision for either country to unilaterally walk out of the pact. 3. The treaty gives control over the waters of the Ravi, Chenab and Satluj to India. Select the correct answer. Easy question again. Indus Water Treaty, which was very popular about a couple of years ago. 25th question, the 50% of this quiz. Option A is the correct answer, nobody get it. Twenty-sixth question. Through which of the following states of India the Tropic of Cancer passes? 1. Maharashtra. 2. Chhattisgarh. 3. Tripura. 4. Manipur. Select the correct answer. So you can make a list of all these, okay? Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, etc. Equator. So these are very important international lines. So you have to study which all states do these lines pass through. Also, which of the countries do these lines pass through. Okay? That will help you for your UPSC exam. Knowing this can be of immense use. Not these kinds of questions, just these kinds of questions. Some other questions that can also be cracked if you know the location of the country. Moving to our next question, which is question number 27. What does the term monsoon break refer to in Indian climatic phenomenon? A. These are periods when monsoon trough shifts to the foothills of Himalayas, which leads to sharp decrease in rainfall over most parts of the country. B. It is the period of rainfall in desert areas or rain shadow regions in India. C. It is the phenomenon of monsoon branches breaking down into Arabian and Bay of Bengal branch. D. It is the period during which there is a sudden outbreak of monsoon over the Indian subcontinent? Choose the correct answer. Pretty direct question, pretty easy question. I think everyone will get this correct just by looking in the options. Correct answer is option A. Wow, nobody got that. I really thought everyone will get that. Okay. Wasn't that an easy question? I thought so. Question 28. With reference to rare earth metals, consider the following statements. 1. They are a group of metals that are rarely found in the Earth's crust. 2. Extracting these metals is hazardous for health and the environment. 3. China leads the total production of the rare earth in the world. Choose the correct answer. The good thing with these kinds of questions is, if you can eliminate one statement, or if you have an idea of one statement, it is easy to arrive at the answer. Okay, if you can eliminate one statement, then you get a 50-50 in your final answer. Correct answer option C. Nobody getting that. Moving on to our next question. Question number 29. Consider the following statements. 1. Natural gas occurs in the Gondwana beds. 2. Mica occurs in abundance in Koderma. 3. Tharwars are famous for petroleum. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So this is regarding the resource distribution in India. Okay, which region is famous for what? I think there is a map in your NCERT geography textbook that detailedly tell you which all regions has the abundance of which all minerals. Okay, if you have looked into that map, you can actually get the answers to this question. Anyway, the correct answer to that question is option B. 33% of you getting it. Very good. Moving on to our next question. Question number 30. Many transplanted seedlings do not grow because dash. Option A. The new soil does not contain favorable minerals. B. Most of the root hairs grip the new soil too hard. C. Most of the root hairs are lost during the transplantation. D. Leaves get damaged during transplantation. Choose the correct answer. Very easy question again. Just eliminate it. I mean, you know the answer to this question. Option C, 25%. Alright. For the past 4-5 questions, everybody has been getting wrong answers. Question 31. During a thunderstorm, the thunder in the skies is produced by dash. 1. Meeting of cumulonimbus clouds in the sky. 2. Lightning that separates the nimbus clouds. 3. Violent upward movement of air and water particles. Select the correct code using the options given below. Okay, this is regarding your clouds. There are different types of clouds: cumulonimbus, cirrus, cumulus. Okay, so you have to understand what is the difference between all these kinds of clouds, how are they important, etc., etc. Correct answer is option D. Nobody getting that again. Okay, last 4-5 questions has been extremely difficult for all of you, I think. Nobody getting any correct answers there. Anyway, moving to our next question, 32. The great northern plains of India are alluvial fertile plains formed by the depositional process of the Himalayan rivers over a long period of time. Consider the following statements related to it. 1. The Terai plain lies north of the Babar plains and is marshy in nature. 2. The Babar plains consist of gravel and unsorted sediment deposits suitable for cultivation. 3. The Bhangar plains are oldest alluvial plains which is well drained. 4. Delta plains are considered as the extension of Khadar land. Choose the correct answer. Dear learners in YouTube, kindly participate in this quiz by joining via the Unacademy learning app. Question 33. With reference to the moon, which of the following statement is or are correct? Number 1. The moon is a synchronous rotation with Earth and thus always show the same side to Earth. 2. Lunar eclipses occur at the new moon when the Earth is between Sun and Moon. 3. The moon has an elliptical orbit. Choose the correct answer. Those who are watching in YouTube, kindly join the quiz via Unacademy learning app so that you can also participate. Okay, in order to participate, download Unacademy learning app and under the test tab as shown in the picture here, go to the test tab, hit the join quiz button and enter the quiz code 568868. Yeah, correct answer is option B. Very good. Swati moving up into the top 3 there. Let's move on to our next question. 34. With reference to earthquakes, consider the following statements. Seismic activity is a direct source of obtaining information related to Earth's interior. 2. Body waves are more dangerous than surface waves in terms of destruction. 3. An S wave is slower than a P wave and can only move through solid rock. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? Kindly join this quiz via the Unacademy learning app. Okay. Download the app. In the test tab, hit the join quiz button and enter the quiz code 568868. You can also participate. Yeah, option C is the correct answer to that question. In the YouTube screen, the questions may not be visible. Also, the answers are given in written form in the app only. Okay, so the participants will get the detailed explanation of all the questions. So I request all of you to participate. Moving on to question 35. With reference to the term global dimming, consider the following statements. 1. Global dimming is the result of a decline in the sunspot occurring from time to time. 2. The cooling effect of global dimming can reduce the overall warming trend of global warming. Choose the correct answer. We have 15 more questions to go after this one. And the correct answer is option B. Nobody getting it. Alright, Vishnu at the top, Srisandhi Devi second, Vidya third, Swati fourth. 36. Consider the following statements with respect to cotton industry in India. 1. Cotton in India accounts for about 25% of the global fiber production. 2. The government of India announces minimum support price for both medium and long staple cotton. 3. Cotton Corporation of India under the Ministry of Textile is the principal agency for undertaking MSP operations. Select the correct answer. Dear learners who are in YouTube, kindly join this quiz via the Unacademy learning app. Okay, in the YouTube screen, the questions may not be visible for you. So I request you to join this quiz via Unacademy learning app. If you have any doubts on how to do that, ask me. I will help you with it. Moving on to our next question. Question 37. With reference to Indian Ocean Dipole, sometimes mentioned in the news while forecasting Indian monsoon, which of the following statements is or are correct? Indian Ocean Dipole is characterized by a difference in sea surface temperature between tropical Western Indian Ocean and tropical Eastern Pacific Ocean. 2. An IOD phenomenon can influence an El Niño's impact on monsoon. Choose the correct answer. Very simple question. Read the question carefully. Read the statements carefully and you can get the correct answer. Regarding Indian Ocean Dipole, very often seen in the news. Correct answer to 37th question is option B. 25% of you got that right. It is the Western Pacific Ocean and Eastern Indian Ocean. In the question it is said that Western Indian Ocean, Eastern Pacific Ocean. How is that possible? Okay. Question 38. Consider the following statements about aluminum. 1. It is the second most abundant metallic element in the Earth's crust after silicon. 2. It is used in water treatment and medicine antacid to combat gastric upsets, antiperspirants, etc. Choose the correct answer. Dear learners in YouTube, kindly join this quiz. Kindly participate in this quiz directly via the Unacademy Learning app. Download the Unacademy Learning app. Under the test button, hit the Join Quiz tab and enter this code 568868. You can also participate. This is absolutely free. No subscriptions is required. Yeah, Swati moving into top 3 now. Vishnu leading. 39th question. Consider the following statements about point bars. 1. Point bars are found on the concave side of meanders of large rivers. 2. Unlike meander bars, point bars are deposited in a linear fashion by flowing waters along the bank. 3. They are almost uniform in profile and contain mixed sizes of sediments. Select the incorrect answer. Okay, which of the statements is not correct? Dear learners in YouTube, again let me just request you to join this quiz using the Unacademy Learning app. Okay, questions that may not be visible in your YouTube screen. So please join via the Unacademy Learning app. The 40th question. Which of the following statements is or are correct regarding Big Bang Theory? Number 1. It states that at some moment all of the space was contained in a single point of the very high density and high temperature state. 2. The majority of atoms produced by the Big Bang were oxygen and carbon dioxide. Select the correct answer. The Big Bang Theory. Which of these statements is or are correct regarding the Big Bang Theory? A very famous theory regarding the birth of universe. Okay, you have to find out the correct option. Simple question actually. And the correct option is option A. 50% of you got that right. It is not oxygen and carbon dioxide, it is oxygen and hydrogen. Okay, moving on. 41st question. Which of the following is or are the benefits of agroforestry? 1. Increment in soil nutrients through addition and decomposition of litter fall. 2. Reduction in incidence of total crop failure common to single cropping or monoculture system. 3. Improvement in nutrition and health due to increased quality and diversity of food outputs. Select the correct code. Dear learners who are still watching in YouTube, kindly join this quiz using the Unacademy Learning app so that you can also participate. Click the test button here and hit the join quiz button as shown by the red arrows and enter this quiz code 568868. Anyone can participate. This is absolutely free. Option D is the correct answer. 42nd question. Consider the following statements about agricultural census. 1. It is conducted at an interval of 2 years by the Department of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers Welfare. 2. As per the 10th Agricultural Census 2015-16, the percentage of female operational holdings in the country has decreased. 3. The first census was conducted with the reference year 1970-71. Select the correct answer. Agricultural census. We have plenty of census. Okay, we have the demographic census or the population census. Then we have socio-economic census. Then you have agricultural census. You have livestock census. Okay. I mean, right now we have tiger census and such kind of species specific census are also there in India. Moving on to our next question. Question number 43. Consider the following statements regarding Mediterranean type of climate. A question from climatology. Okay. Statement number 1. Most of the areas falling under this climate are situated around Mediterranean Sea. 2. The best developed form of this climate is found around Mediterranean Sea. 3. This climate originates due to north and southward migration of sun. 4. Sufficient rains are received both during winter and summer season. Select the correct answer. Those who are watching through YouTube, if you are unable to see these questions in YouTube screen, that is because this quiz is happening in the Unacademy Learning app. Okay, so download the app and use this code 568868 in order to join this quiz. Moving on to our next question, 44. The 2004 tsunami made people realize that mangroves can serve as a reliable safety hedge against coastal calamities. How do mangroves function as safety hedge? A. The mangrove swamps separate the human settlements from the sea by a wide zone in which people neither live nor venture out. B. The mangroves provide both food and medicines with which people are in the need of after any natural disaster. C. The mangrove trees are tall with dense canopies and serve as an excellent shelter during cyclone or tsunami. D. The mangrove trees do not get uprooted by storms and tides because of the extensive roots. Correct answer is that last statement. Okay, because of their extensive root network, the mangrove trees does not get uprooted that easily. Okay, that is the reason why mangrove cover is extremely good against coastal aggressions. Okay, 45th question. The process of solifluction includes dash. A. Slow downslope flowing soil mass or rock debris with water. B. Free fall of earth's debris from a vertical or overhanging face. C. The downslope movement of relatively dry material under the influence of gravity. And D. New soil formation due to biological activity of plants and animals. Select the correct answer. The quiz is happening in the Unacademy learning app. I request all of you to participate via the app. Okay, not in YouTube. In the YouTube screen, the questions may not be that visible. Yeah, Solar Rajan has joined us in the last moment. I request others to join also. Question 46. Consider the following oceanic currents. 1. Falkland current. 2. Alaska current. 3. Canaries current. 4. Kuroshio current. Which of the above given currents is or are examples of cold current? Okay, again another question from your GC Leong map. In the GC Leong textbook, there is a ocean current map which clearly shows every current, both hot and cold. If you have looked into that map, if you have studied that map, you know the answer to this question. The cold current and the warm currents, very important for your UPSC. Yeah, correct answer to that question is option C. 60% of you getting it. Very good. Great work. 47th question. With reference to the sugar industry in India, consider the following statements. 1. Sugar mills in India are located close to the cane producing regions. 2. India is the largest producer of cane sugar in the world. Select the correct answer. Statement number 1 is saying sugar mills in India are located close to the cane producing regions. Statement number 2. India is the largest producer of cane sugar in the world. Which of these statements is or are correct? Easy question, 47. Yeah, option A is the correct answer. 60% of you getting it. Statement 2 was wrong. India is not the largest producer. Okay, India is the second largest. Question 48. Consider the following statements regarding earthquakes. 1. The place on the surface of the earth above the focus is called as epicenter. 2. Foreshocks are smaller earthquakes that follow the main shock for weeks and at times for months. Which of these statements is or are correct? Okay. The place on the surface of earth above the focus is called epicenter. Foreshocks are smaller earthquakes that follow the main shock for weeks or in times for a month. Last 3 questions. 48th question. Correct answer is option A. 50% of you getting it. Foreshocks come earlier. Okay, not after the earthquake. After the earthquake, we have aftershocks. Okay. 49th question. Last but first question. Which of the following dams are constructed on the Krishna River? Okay. Srisailam Dam, Nagarjuna Sagar Dam, Almaty Dam. Choose the correct answer. Another important area, rivers and dams. Okay. For UPSC Geography Prelims, you have to study rivers and dams. So, which of these dams is constructed on the Krishna River? Srisailam, Nagarjuna Sagar, Almaty. Last but first question, 5 seconds to go. Yeah, time is up. Correct answer option D. Okay. And we are moving towards the final question of the quiz. Final question for the day. That is 58th question. Consider the following statements regarding the oceanic atmosphere interactions. 1. El Nino refers to the large-scale ocean atmosphere climate interaction linked to periodic warming in the sea surface temperatures across the central and east central equatorial Pacific. 2. La Nina represents periodic or above average sea surface temperature across the east central equatorial Pacific. Choose the correct answer. So this is regarding your El Nino and La Nina phenomena. Very easy question to end this quiz. So I think Vishnu is the winner irrespective of how this one goes. Second by Sri Sindhil Devi and third, yeah, option A is the correct answer. Yes, Vishnu has hit the 2000 mark there and is the winner for the day. Second place for Sri Sindhil Devi with 1193. Swati Goswami at the third place. Okay, so of the 7 people who participated, these 3 are our winners. Also, those who want to get the solutions for these questions, all you have to do is click the solutions tab right next to the leaderboard tab. Okay, once I click that, you can see all the questions again. And if you click the arrow right next to the question, you can see the solutions also. Complete explanation is given within the app itself. I request all the participants to go through this again. Okay, so that is it. We have come to the end of this quiz, also this end of this session. So thank you everybody for participating. Okay, so that is it for the day. I am winding this up. So I request all of you to use my code MSRW1 in order to get an Unacademy subscription so that you can avail 10% discount in the subscription rates. Okay, also please like, share and subscribe this classes and join my Telegram channel t.me/MSRW1 so that whenever I schedule a class, you can get notified as well as you can get my PDFs, class notes, etc. etc. Okay, so that is it. Thank you everyone. See you tomorrow in the next class.